Tonight, we find ourselves on a rainy evening in Calcutta, the kind of night that's just perfect for a story, would you say? And we have one from, well, none other than Rabindranath Tagore.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, not your typical bedtime story. It's a story within a story about this young boy trying to avoid his tutors and getting completely lost in his grandmother's fairy tale.
Yes, and this is where Tagore really, he uses this layered approach to show us the difference between how a child just accepts a story and, an adult's tendency to want to pick it apart.
So it's almost like we're hearing this story through two sets of ears,
Yeah.
right? The boy's who's just captivated, and then Tagore's the writer who's kind of watching and thinking about what it all means.
Exactly. And, using this frame, it's not just a stylistic choice. It lets Tagore ask some big questions about how we connect with stories, how our age, even our experiences change how we see them. And ultimately, what we see is the truth in these narratives.
So before we go too far into the boy's experience, let's actually talk about the fairy tale itself. So we have a king, a princess, and a wood gatherer. Sounds pretty familiar, right? Some classic fairy tale ingredients.
Oh, absolutely. But you have to remember, fairy tales, they weren't always just for fun. They were often ways to teach lessons, maybe explain things about the world, even comment on society. Tagore, he starts this story very playfully. He talks about how today's reader demands to know details, like which king, where, when. But for a child, the only truth that matters is that once there was a king.
Right, right. And this king, he's really desperate for a son, so he goes off into the forest for 12 years to, well, perform austerities. And in the meantime, his daughter grows up, and when he comes back, he doesn't even recognize her.
Think about that for a second, that long absence. The princess not getting married until, well, who knows when. A modern reader might find that a bit odd. And then there's the marriage itself.
Oh, yeah, a princess marrying a wood gatherer. That's not exactly your typical fairy tale ending.
It's not, but we have to think about the context. Fairy tales, they reflect the time they were written in. And Tagore, he might be using these elements to make us, the readers, stop and think a little.
Almost like he's making us confront our own ideas about social class, about what's right and wrong.
Exactly. And by putting these things in a fairy tale, it's almost safer. Like, we can think about them without feeling attacked or judged.
Okay, so we have this fairy tale happening,
Oh.
but let's not forget about the boy listening. Tagore paints such a clear picture of him. He's hiding under a mosquito net, it's a rainy night in Calcutta, and he is dreading this lesson he has coming up. But right now, he's totally absorbed in his grandmother's words.
And his reactions are so important to what Tagore's trying to say. He isn't just listening, he's living this story. He wants to be that wood gatherer, to marry the princess. He believes in that happy ending, and that childlike belief, that's what Tagore wants us to see.
He even says he wishes he was that wood gatherer, and Tagore captures that beautifully, that complete faith in the story, no matter how impossible it might seem to us as adults.
Yeah, he doesn't even think about, a princess marrying a poor wood gatherer. It just doesn't matter to him. He's caught up in the story. He cares about these characters. And then, of course, comes the twist.
Oh, yes, the twist. Just as the princess is about to tell her husband who she really is, he gets bitten by a snake and dies. What a cliffhanger. I can only imagine how the boy must have felt.
Devastated, right? And that's exactly it. You see how a child can be so drawn into a story, how much they feel everything that happens. It says a lot about how powerful stories can be, how they can bring out these raw emotions.
It is a little heartbreaking to see that innocent belief just shattered by something so sudden and tragic.
And we have to remember, it's not just about a king and princess, is it? It's about this boy who's trying to escape his lesson, clinging to this fantastic tale to avoid, well, boredom, really.
Tagore says the boy's heart collapsed when he saw his tutor coming. That image is so powerful. It's like his little world of imagination was being invaded.
Right. That image of the tutor's umbrella appearing at the turn of the lane, it's so strong. It's like reality, responsibility, pushing its way into this world of fantasy, like breaking a spell.
But then we have the grandmother, with her stories, coming to the rescue. She's like a shield against the boredom, weaving this world where, well, princesses marry wood gatherers, and death is just a temporary thing.
And it's important to note, she's not just telling the story, she's performing it. Tagore talks about her voice droning on, the lamp burning low. It all creates this atmosphere that draws the boy in deeper and deeper. It's this shared experience, this act of creation between the storyteller and the listener.
About this story itself, I'm thinking about the role of chance. Like, the king just gives his daughter to the first person he sees after leaving the palace, and it happens to be this boy gathering sticks. It's such a random, almost absurd thing to happen.
Well, that's the beauty of fairy tales, right? They don't have to be realistic. But maybe by using this random event, Tagore is saying something about fate, how our lives can change because of these chance encounters.
And the princess, she doesn't even hesitate. Takes this child husband home, builds him this huge palace with 7 wings, and takes care of him so devotedly. She's quite a character, isn't she?
She really is, but she also makes you think about, agency. She's the king's daughter, but she doesn't really have a say in her own life. Her marriage is decided for her, and she just seems to accept it. It reflects the times, of course. Women, especially royal women, didn't have a lot of control over their lives.
But even though she doesn't have that control, she's still strong and resourceful. She builds this life for herself and her husband. She even keeps the truth about their marriage from him. It's only when he keeps asking that she finally agrees to tell him.
Exactly, and that hesitation, her not wanting to reveal who she is, it adds another layer. Is she protecting him? Or herself? Is she afraid of how he'll react? Or what society will think? Or maybe she's afraid of changing the life they've built together. Tagore leaves it open to interpretation.
And then, just when we're waiting to hear her secret, tragedy strikes. The snake bite, the sudden death. It's like the whole world of the story collapses. For the characters and for the boy listening.
Tagore describes the boy's reaction so vividly. My heart suddenly ceased to throb. It's like that abrupt ending, that sudden loss of hope. He's completely crushed.
And it's interesting how Tagore, the writer, he steps in here, almost saying the story could continue, but it would just lead to more impossible things. It's like he's playing with the idea of storytelling itself, acknowledging that even in fantasy there are limits.
This is where his meta-commentary, it becomes really clear. He's showing us the tension between a child wanting a happy ending and an adult understanding how complicated life really is and how harsh things can be.
But the grandmother, bless her, she won't let the story die. She brings the boy back like a magical resurrection. It's like she's fighting against that ending, not letting the darkness win.
And that resurrection, it's more than just part of the plot. It's a metaphor, for how powerful stories can be. Through her words, she brings the story back to life, keeping the magic and wonder alive for the boy and for us, the listeners.
It's almost like she's saying, even when we face loss and despair, there's still hope. We can find comfort, meaning through stories. It's really interesting how Tagore compares the boy's reaction to the story with what he calls the modern readers. It's like even today, we get so caught up in analyzing stories, trying to find all these hidden meanings and symbols, sometimes we forget to just let ourselves be carried away by the story.
Yes, it's something we all do, especially those of us who study literature. We're always looking for logic, consistency, some deeper meaning, and we can miss the simple beauty of the story itself, how it makes us feel.
Tagore seems to be saying that children, they just have this natural ability to connect with the heart of the story, to accept the impossible without needing explanations. They believe.
And that belief lets them experience the story fully. They feel all the joy, the sorrow, the fear, without all the doubts and cynicism that we as adults tend to have.
I remember when I was a kid, I would get so lost in stories. I mean, for hours. Blankets became forts, cardboard boxes were spaceships. I really believed I was the hero. It was pure magic.
That's what good storytelling does. It lets us go beyond our own reality, to see the world through someone else's eyes, feel what they feel. It's a way of understanding, of empathy that can be incredibly powerful.
But as we grow up, we seem to lose that sense of wonder, that willingness to just believe. We become more analytical, more critical. And sometimes I think that takes away from the pure joy of experiencing a story.
It's not that thinking critically is a bad thing. We need that, especially in today's world. But Tagore is reminding us to find a balance, to hold on to that childlike sense of wonder, that openness to the impossible, even as we think about things in a more grown-up way.
He's not saying we should just blindly believe everything or stop thinking for ourselves. It's more about, I think, embracing all the different ways a story can affect us, letting ourselves be transported, to feel things deeply, to connect with the magic that's at the heart of a good story.
So what does this mean for you, dear listener? Maybe it's a chance to go back to the stories that captivated you as a child. Or maybe it's a challenge to approach new stories with a fresh perspective, to let yourself be swept away by the narrative.
To rediscover that part of yourself that still believes in princesses and wood gatherers, in magical resurrections and happy endings, even when those endings are, maybe a little bittersweet. To remember that simple truth that Tagore so beautifully puts it: Once there was a story.
And that story, like all stories, has the power to change us, to teach us, and to connect us in ways we might not have imagined if we just let it.
Thank you for joining us on this journey into Tagore's tale. We hope you leave with a new appreciation for the power of storytelling, for how it can transport us, move us, and remind us of the magic that exists within us all. Until next time, keep those stories alive.